Today I'm going to talk a bit about my experience during the war in Kosovo or during the war in ex-Yugoslavia. Most of the people, they know and they think that the war in Kosovo more or less happened in 1998, 1999. But to be perfectly honest, since I know myself since I was 8 or 9, political situation here in Kosovo, it was very bad. This happened more or less since Milosevic came to the power, especially in 1989, from when workers in Trepča mine, since the strike of workers in Trepča mine, when we were like fighting for equality with other nationalities, or the rights, with same rights with other nationalities in ex-Yugoslavia. And especially when I got to finish my primary school, when that time everybody from majority of people in Kosovo, Albanians, were kicked out from the job, and my parents both left without jobs. So we had to try to manage and survive, since more than 90% of Albanians were kicked out from the jobs only because they decided not to write that they are, let's say, Serbs. If you want to work in that time, or if you want to continue working for institution, for any other organization that are related with that time still Yugoslavia, because more or less the war or the problem started in Kosovo and Yugoslavia and ended with Kosovo in 1999. And when I finished the primary school, I understood what's going on more since all the schools were closed for Albanians. So we had to find a way how to get more education, and at that time Kosovo government was created in exile to supply people in Kosovo, majority of people in Kosovo, with education and health in their own language. So what they did, they created this parallel system, and all my secondary school I went illegally in school, which were actually not schools, but they were private houses when we used it as a school. So for a while, even my house or my kitchen was converted to one of the class of my secondary school or gymnasium. So this went like this till 1998. So when we went very rarely out of our neighborhood, because we were always somehow in dangers. I remember 1997 when I was only 16. I was stopped by police when I was crossing the bridge, which now divides the north part of Mitrovica and south part of Mitrovica, because I used to live in south of part of Mitrovica. Now the city, as many of you know, is divided. Both nationalities serves in the north and Albania in the south. They have completely different view for everything. So basically that time it was one city, so we didn't have even this expression to say north of Mitrovica or south of Mitrovica. We say like beyond the bridge. So once I was stopped by police in 1997, and they, of course, that time when you were stopped by police, you were fact because the maltreation was always there. So only because I couldn't speak properly Serbian language, I was slapped or hit by police. So since that time, I was thinking very seriously to leave Kosovo and to find a better place to live and to get education, because education was very hard part. So and I didn't, but most of the people, from 89 till 1999, more than 500,000, almost 1 million, they left Kosovo to find a peace or better life somewhere outside of Kosovo, mostly in Western countries like Germany, Switzerland, Scandinavia, and even further to United States. So that's how actually we survived, because all these people from our diaspora who lived outside, they would send money to help us to survive. So basically, that's how most of our community, or Albanians, majority Albanians there, survived through the help or aid of our people outside of Kosovo, because as I said, in this Cold War, more than 90% of Albanians were unemployed or kicked out of their jobs. So this went till 1998, and it was a very bad situation. I remember I had this tennis court in my neighborhood, but I couldn't use only because I was Albanian. And it's paradox to think in the city where like majority of one community they couldn't use, or the swimming pool, for example, which we had only one swimming pool that time in our region, which was in northern Mitrovica, in between Mitrovica and Zvečan. So basically, I couldn't go there because it was like, yeah, strictly only for non-Albanians. That's how we lived, or we survived, or we grew up in our teenager life till 1998, when the war started. First in some villages in the Drenica region, not very far from Mitrovica, where I was born and grew up, and till 1999 in the beginning, when the war more or less went through all the villages and cities in Kosovo. So during the war, I was most of the time in Mitrovica in Kosovo. But in one moment, in 2 months, when especially after NATO started bombing at that time, Serbia and Montenegro, and some of the military bases in Kosovo, Serbian military bases in Kosovo, at that time became even more difficult for us to live there. So I remember for 2 months, I changed around 30 houses, moving from one to another house, when we thought it's probably some neighborhoods are more safe than others. Until one night, the soldier, especially paramilitary soldiers, they came to our neighborhood, and they asked us to leave to Albania. So of course, but they didn't let you to take anything except a small bag. Even you couldn't take our cars, or so basically, I remember we walked from 10 days from Mitrovica until 17 kilometers to border with Albania. Remember, the weather was really bad, so I mean, we would walk like through the rain and through the war zones. And one moment, in outside the Mitrovica, we just approached these war zones when we saw a lot of killed people, and even it goes beyond and even worse when some of our people in Cologne, where we used to walk, they would ask them to go out of the Cologne and they will just execute them. Luckily, nobody from my family was killed. We survived until one moment when we went this 17 kilometers next to Albanian border. We were very happy after 10 days that we were leaving Kosovo, so we were finding peace in Albania. But we approached to Kosovo, or at that time Yugoslavia and Albanian border. They didn't let us to cross the border, so they asked us to go back again to Mitrovica, which was like very shock for us, because we did walk for 10 days and we couldn't cross the border. So, and they asked us, I said, okay. I remember some of the soldiers were a bit better than paramilitary soldiers, like they were really dangerous and of course, during the war, what do you expect? But they were more dangerous than regular soldiers or police. So some soldiers approached us. They said, "Look, you should go back, walk again to your hometown, because I guess soon there's going to be one agreement, so everybody will live in peace again in Kosovo." Which, of course, we didn't believe that. But we were forced to walk again, and some of the guys who were like, let's say, in the age that they could fight, they asked them to stay with them. That time I was 18, but I was claiming that I'm younger. So because being from 18 to 65 was always much more dangerous. So we walked 7 days more until we approached, because after they asked to walk in different direction, in the entrance of Skenderaj, which in Serbian we call Srbica in that time. They asked us to stop there, and they divided all the men from other part of the families. So all the men 18 to 65, they were taken from Serbian army, especially paramilitary soldiers, and one of them was my father as well. So they approached me, and they asked me why I'm not going to other side of the road when all the men was collected. But yeah, I said to them, so I'm 16, so one of the soldier, a regular soldier, I remember he said to one of these paramilitary soldiers that, yeah, look at him, he's young, so we shouldn't take him. So my father, with all these men, like probably like 200, 300 men, they went, or they were forced to jump in their tracks. So we didn't know what was going to happen with them. So we thought from that day we're not going to see anymore our father. So actually, that moment, my mom, I left only with my mom and my younger sister, and she was at that time between 10 and 11. Of course, she starts screaming, but because for her it was even more difficult to see all this situation, because somehow when I was 18, I was used with that, what's going on. So for a couple of months, we didn't knew anything what happened with our father. We went to our 2 days more. We went back to our hometown, Mitrovica. So basically, all our house was completely destroyed. So we had to live for a while there, and again moving from one to another house, trying to find better, safer place. Until one moment when we heard that our father survived. Even some of his friends still are missing. So basically, it was for almost 2 months in kind of concentration camp, when like for 2 weeks he stayed in a room with more than 100 people in a room with 4 and 5 meters. My father, I think, he survived because he had some money and he paid some people. So, but 4 of his people in his room, they're still missing. So yeah, I mean, until last 2 weeks. Meantime, of course, a lot of would approach and would like face a lot of fights at that time between Serbian army, police, and paramilitary in one way, and Kosovo Liberation Army in the other side. So somehow we were not even safe in a single day. And for me, it was the hardest part because in one moment, a paramilitary soldier came to our house and I had to hide, and I had no clue what was going to happen with my sister and my mom because there were only 2 females left at home, and I had to hide and to escape. So like this continued till 2 weeks before the war ended, when we heard, because we don't to escape from Kosovo, even if we could, because we thought our father might be killed or something like this. And for our brother, we didn't knew anything for a couple of months because at that time he was in Mitrovica and Pristina, so he escaped from Pristina. So basically, for 3 months we didn't knew anything for our father, and for almost 5 months we didn't had any, not even a single news from our brother. So yeah, till the last 2 weeks, when my uncle, he managed somehow to convince a guy that he knew from a Serbian community. So he was a driver in a bus driver. So I remember that time he paid a lot of money just to drive us. And this guy more or less was kind of very well connected with army. So he drove us that time, now for a second time trying to escape, but now not by walking for 17 days, but by bus. I remember we escaped from Kosovo like 2 weeks before Kumanov agreement, when Kosovo was war in Kosovo was finished. So yeah, I mean, and when we escaped, and we were very happy because we realized that our father was survived, my brother was survived as well. So all the family somehow we reunited, and so yeah, more or less we all survived. But what I did, I mean, for a while after I came back to Kosovo, I didn't want really to think much about that because I was thinking to think for future, not for the past. Because experience the war, it was very hard, not only for me but for everybody who was there. And even now, I mean, I try more or less in my artworks not to talk about too much about wars, but probably consequences from the war. or transition after the war, let's say political, economic, or social transformation. I know a lot of friends, families, they lost their own families. Luckily, we all survived, but I experienced to see a lot of people dead during the war, and to see all my city completely destroyed, including my house. And I remember somebody left without escaping in my neighborhood, so he was telling us how even the tracks came and they took everything what left from our houses. So basically we came back after the war, I think like 2 weeks after the war, so we found our house completely destroyed, only the walls were there. And yeah, we continue to see the future and to live in Kosovo post-war. Now, of course, it's completely different political situation. And yeah, I mean, usually I don't talk much about the war because it was a horrible experience. But I think this experience made me more, gave me more power. And we have expression in Albania that say, I think the human being is more strong than a stone. And after I experienced all that, I think that's completely correct. And that's completely true. Thank you.